This morning, we're going to be talking about life on the edge, and some of you may be thinking life on the edge is not drinking a diet soda and drinking regular soda, figuring out if you're going to risk going to a certain place to eat or a certain place to go, living life on the edge, going to the extreme of skydiving or things like that. But we're talking about living life on the edge of the sharpness of God that we have, losing our edge. We need our edge to be sharp in this world today. The edge that we have, that God has given us, our spiritual edge needs to be sharper than ever before to be able to cut through the things in this world that are trying to deceive us and hurt us. Amen? 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 1 through 7 is where our text is going to be today. And in this it says, "An axe head floats. The company of the prophets said to Elisha, 'Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let us go to Jordan, where each of us can get a pole, and let us build a place there for us to meet.' And he said, 'Go.' Then one of them said, 'Won't you please come with your servants?' 'I will,' Elisha replied. And he went with them. They went to the Jordan and began to cut down the trees. And as one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron head of the axe head fell into the water. And they said, 'Oh no, my lord,' he cried out. 'It was borrowed.' The man of God asked, 'Where did it fall?' And when he showed him the place, Elisha cut a stick and threw it there, and he made the iron float. 'Lift it out,' he said. Then the man reached out his hand, and he took it." Now, I am by no means a person who will use an axe. I will use a chainsaw. Okay? And this is my axe head that has been given down to me over the years. And I would not use this to chop through strings of spaghetti. This thing is so dull and ready to break, and I don't even really know how I got it. I got a lot of hand-me-downs from my families and things like this. So I don't know if this was my dad's or my grandfather's or what this is. But all I know is it's sitting in my storage building. And, there's no sharp edges at all. I mean, literally, you couldn't do anything. Now, I know some people keep their axe heads pretty sharp. And there's some people that chop wood all the time, and you keep it sharp. But I'm going to use a chainsaw. And when that chain gets dull, I'm going to buy another chain. Because that's what I know to do. But this is something borrowed, and to them in that time, this was something of great value. And sometimes in life, we have not learned the ways of our mentors and our family of the value of things handed down and borrowed. Amen? There's certain things that are going to be more important to you in life, but there's some things that are borrowed that you're going to keep hold of and you're going to cherish. And that's what God is here to remind us today, that He has given us something. He has given us talents, gifts. He's given us the spirit of freedom. He's given us anointing and callings, and it's been borrowed. But have we taken care of it? Have we kept it sharp? So this morning, I want you to be thinking about your life and how sharp it is this morning for Jesus. And in this story, in this message, during this time, Israel and North Judah in the south, after all this, they were split into two kingdoms. And so after the prophet Elijah was taken away into heaven to a fiery chariot, the prophet Elisha began to start his ministry. Elisha had trained under Elijah for, it's believed, 50 years to prepare for his ministry. Elisha is now training other young prophets of God. And this is what it's meant by the sons of the prophets in verse 1. So from what we're told in verse 1, the school of prophets had become so large that they outgrew their current place, and they needed to build something a little bit larger to accommodate their growing enrollment of prophets. The anxious prophets approached Elisha, their teacher, with this request in verse 2, and saying, "Please let us go to Jordan, and let every man take a beam from there, and let us make there a place where we may dwell." Elisha replied, "Go." In other words, he was sending them off to this building of a task with his blessing. And Elisha was not planning on accompanying them until one of the prophets approached him and requested that he go with them. So were they expecting Elisha to help with this work? Or putting up the building? No. They simply wanted him there for inspiration. Having their teacher there to watch them would be a great source of strength and encouragement for this huge task ahead. So when they arrived at the Jordan River, they immediately began to work, cutting down the trees, and each student doing his part. But pretty soon, that's when the problem arises. While cutting down a tree, a young man has his axe head come flying off the handle into the Jordan River, and it sinks at the bottom. Now, as I was preparing this message, I don't know if there's Harry Chappell. Harry Chappell probably doesn't remember this part of it, but we used to have a boys and girls group, and we went camping at Lake Robertson up in Lexington, Virginia, right? And when we went, the goal was to teach the young men how to chop some wood. Now imagine these boys my age at 9 to 12 years old, and they're giving us these axes, and they're trying to teach us to, split wood. And I'll never forget, we had some of the axes similar to this. They were a little small, easy to handle. They had the little hatchets. But then I remember there was this one wedge axe, okay? And it was this heavy pole. You know what I'm talking about, Harry? And it was like a cheese wedge. And that cheese wedge was it had to be like 30 pounds. And so when you lifted it up, the cheese wedge would come all the way down and hit your hands. So you had to keep your hand guided. So they were teaching us this. So imagine every one of us, they all told you, now make sure you hold it right here like this. And here we are. And then that wedge would just come down and slam us, and we'd all just drop it. And then they were trying to teach us in motion to use your hand in one swing and go. And the wedge would do the work. Now, if we'd have broken that, Harry would have probably been like, that was probably something borrowed. So one of them were using it, but it was made of steel. And I was brought back to this memory of we were having inspiration from these leaders in our church. And these are the young men that are learning these things. And you don't think sometimes that you're taking things for granted, but realize this, church, brothers and sisters in this room, you are influencing those around you with things that are borrowed and you don't even know it. Don't take for granted the lessons that you're sharing with each other and they're sharing with these young children and our youth today. But as they were doing that, I remember them teaching us even how to sharpen it. So I want to ask you this morning, have you lost the cutting edge? Have you lost your spiritual sharpness? Have you lost your effectiveness and enthusiasm for doing the work of the Lord that He has called you to do? Because this morning, we need to recover our spiritual edge. We need to begin to live life on the edge so that we are sharp and aware of the things around us and how the enemy's trying to attack us. But here's the first point. We must accept responsibility for losing our spiritual edge. It is on us. Now you say, come on, Pastor Robbie, why are you putting this on me this morning? Because every one of us have a responsibility to God that we gave our life to Him. But it is ours to lose the responsibility when we stop growing and keeping our edge sharp. It is us that has to take the responsibility for not digging into the Word and having the intimate moments and meditating upon the Lord. It is up to us to take responsibility that maybe I'm the one who has allowed myself to have a dull edge. The word, alas, in that verse 5, when it says, but as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, alas, my master, for it was borrowed. Now, this is the King James Version. And in this, that word, alas, literally means, oh no. Now, how many of you have been in that moment of, oh no? Come on now, you know what I'm talking about, oh no. I've got a 2.5-year-old now that will come and he will run from wall to wall, spill his drink and just go, oh no. And it's so cute. But guess who has to clean it up? Mommy. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. But even as parents, you have those oh no moments, and oh no, I forgot this, and oh no, I did this. And I had that oh no moment when I was starting into the mental health moments where I had my laptop and all my notes and everything else, and I'm driving and I go, oh no, what did I do with my laptop? Luckily, somebody was behind me honking the horn. It's on top of your roof. Now, I had the oh no moment, like, oh no, it's all gone. It's all gone. I just don't want to even look. Thankfully, it was there. But there's sometimes that we do that oh no moment and there's nothing we can do about it. And this young man is sitting there crying out, oh master, I've lost this head of this axe. It was borrowed. The fact that this young man lost something that did not belong to him took an even greater significance. He lost something that was not his to lose. He lost something that belonged to another, and he did not blame anyone else for what happened. No, he took full responsibility for what happened. In essence, the man cried out, oh no, master, I have lost the cutting edge I was borrowing from someone else. My brothers and sisters, this morning, when we lose our spiritual edge, we must accept personal responsibility for it. We can't point the finger at the preacher saying, I lost my spiritual edge because the preacher's sermons are boring and don't feed me. We can't point the finger at the church saying, I lost my spiritual edge because our church doesn't offer programs that personally fulfills my needs. We can't point the finger at a job saying, I lost my spiritual edge because my job takes me away from my church. You see where I'm going with this morning? You can't put the blame on everyone else when it all starts with who? You. The truth is, when I or you lose our spiritual edge, the blame that lies within us, we must begin to accept that responsibility. We must understand that we have lost something that we have been borrowed. God has entrusted you and me with spiritual gifts to be used in His work. We are not the owners of these spiritual gifts. We are just the stewards. And when we lose our spiritual edge, that means we are no longer effective in the ministry and the abilities of gifts of God that He's given us. God has entrusted us with this care. We must take the matter so seriously and accept the responsibility and the spiritual edge because there are others around us that need to be healed, touched, delivered, ministered to. You, church, have been given a responsibility to be a steward of God. What a high responsibility that we've been given. The gifts that you've been entrusted with. It might be singing, teaching, preaching, loving, caring, volunteering. It doesn't matter. God entrusted you with something that's been borrowed. To me, that's an honor. Just yesterday, we were downtown in our job and we were volunteering. I'm going to be quite honest, I had no idea what I was volunteering for. I had no information, didn't know what I was doing. All I could do was offer a smile and say, I think it's this way. Or you got a random question. Now, this is the triathlon that's going on, and some of you guys had gotten, you were late to church. My sister said she was late to church because they had it blocked off and she couldn't get here. I know Charles said something about it. 70.3 miles triathlon, okay? 56 miles biking, 1.2 miles swimming, 13 miles running. All right? You're here, you're put in a booth. We're somewhere around 2,000 people. They put you in this booth. Luckily, we had shade. They said, here's the common questions on the first shift that we had. These are the questions you want to refer to. As soon as they left, everybody in the world came asking questions. How do I check in my bike? I don't know. Take your bike over there. Do we have air pumps? I don't know. I'm just giving information of where things are. There's the finish line's over there. Do you know, and I even had rain, do you know, will there be bathrooms the day of the race? I said, there's porta potties right there. When I walked over the porta potties, they were all zip tied. Well, can I go watch my family over here? Yeah, you can go across that bridge. Excuse me, sir, that bridge is closed. That bridge is closed. Where can we park? We didn't buy a parking pass. You can park in that garage right there. They can't park there. Those are paid parking passes. You can't park there. People said, can I have water? I can say, I know where the water is. It's right there. There's a water fountain. That's all I got. But see, as frustrated as I was that I couldn't give the answers, the part that God gave me as a gift is I'm a people person, and I can talk and I can smile and I can love on you and I can make you feel good. And you don't know how many people just came by and they said, thank you for volunteering even though you didn't know the answer. And I'm like, well, there you go. And they come up, well, thank you for trying. And we just kept pointing people to other people that they didn't even know the answer. And at the end of the day, the two people that were in charge just said, I want you guys to know, you may not have known the answers, but because you guys just loved on people and you cared, you made this a great spot to be. That's what you do at church, people. You've been given gifts, and you're a steward, and you may not have all the answers, and you may not be on the cutting edge of knowing every if, and, and out, but you have been given the gift of loving kindness. Stay sharp and love. Number 2, we must acknowledge where we lost our spiritual edge. We must acknowledge where we lost our spiritual edge. In verse 6, and the man of God said, where fell it? And he shewed him the place. And he cut down a stick, cast it in there, and the iron did swim. How could this be? How do we fathom this? I mean, think about it. Would you just throw a random stick into the water expecting an iron head to float? There's got to be some faith in that, right? So Elisha asked the young man to show him exactly where he lost the axe head. And the young man pointed right to where the spot was, and he didn't scratch his head and say, was it over here? Was it over there? He knew exactly where he lost it. Now, what happens in that miracle, it only takes part of one verse, but it's the wonderful miracle nonetheless, because in verse 6, in that part it says, so he, Elisha, cut off a stick, threw it in there, and he made the iron float. There was no human means to recover that lost axe head. There was no water too deep. It was just too deep to swim. There was mud everywhere. Think about it. In that time, there was nothing there. They were chopping down trees. How in the world? Now, I go back to all these stories because God just began to start giving me like a Rolodex of memories. And at Reggie Tyler's home, when they were down near the lake, Mitch decided he was going to invite all the young people over to go swimming off the dock down there. You remember that, Mitch? Vaguely? Long time ago. We're old now. I am. Now we're on the edge of this little dock area, and we're all having a good time, just kind of swimming, floating. Lights. Here comes the sun going down. And I had my car when I got 18, and I was proud of my little Pontiac Sunfire. I had my keys, and I had that cool carabiner when they were cool coming out first. And now it's just like everybody's got a carabiner. And so I didn't carabine it on anything. I didn't, because that's what they're for. You put it on a book bag. You put it on a wire. You put it somewhere so you don't lose your keys. Well, I left my keys on the edge of this little dock. And so here we are swimming, and wouldn't you know it, somebody just knocked my keys right into the water. I never told my parents this, so they're hearing this for the first time. Thank goodness I'm 40 now. I'm sitting there, I'm panicking, and guess what? I had my oh no moment. Oh no. There's my keys right on the edge. But I knew exactly where they fell. And so I went straight down and I reached and they weren't there. And again, I'm like, oh no. I sat there for 30 minutes feeling around, touching the grimy, nasty slime off them rocks, wondering if I'm going to get eaten by something or a crawfish coming out. You never know what's going to come out of a rock. You just don't know. It don't matter. I just don't like touching it. You can't see anything. But finally, when I had those keys, it was a miracle in my hand. Now, this young man, he had his mentor with him. He had Elisha with him. He knew where it fell, and the miraculous part is he told him exactly what to do. I cut this stick, throw it out there, it's going to float. I know where I left it. I know where it happened. Let me ask you this morning, do you know when you started losing your cutting edge? Where did you lose it? Now think about where my keys were on that dock. How close in your life have you had things living on the edge? What things have you moved around, whether a job, family, relationships? What things are sitting so close to that edge that you begin to lose your spiritual sharpness? You see, we prioritize, we move, we change. And things in life begin to dull us down. But somewhere along the path, and how many have heard the road less traveled? I remember that sermon preached a lot, especially by my dad. The road less traveled. Somewhere along our path, we lost it somewhere. We gave up on our relationship with God. We gave up on the infatuation that we're going to be ministers of God or a teacher of God. Somewhere along the line, we lost our edge. And you feel powerless. It almost seems like God's not there. You can't hear him. You can't feel him. You can't see him. I'm going to tell you, you need to go back to where you lost it and then ask God to come back and find it. He will do exactly that and bring back that spiritual edge. The third and final thing this morning is we must take action to recover it. We must take action to recover our spiritual edge this morning. Therefore, he said, take it up thee. Take it up to thee. And he put his hand out and he took it. And what was Elisha trying to teach this young man? He was trying to teach this young man by having him reach down, pick it up, and then take that axe head. For one thing, it reminded the young man the value of what he had lost. He had lost something that belonged to another. He lost something which he could not afford to repay. But perhaps there is an even deeper meaning. Perhaps Elisha was teaching the young man a very valuable lesson on the grace of God. This young man was powerless to recover what he had lost. It was by God's grace and mercy it had been given back to him. Elisha wanted the young man to take this axe head by faith and to go back to chopping down the trees. He had recovered the cutting edge. He had accepted the responsibility. He acknowledged where his spiritual edge was lost. And by faith, God wanted him to pick up what he had lost and go back into action. There's a story of two men. And Lee, you can go ahead and come, and I want the worship team to come. There's a story of these two men. And they were in one of those wood chopping contests. And they had made it on this little farm area that they were going to have a contest for the day. One man began to chop all day. He took one break. He chopped all day long, only took one break. He watched the other guy who was trying to compete with him. And this guy would chop for a little bit, take a break. Chop for a little bit, take a break. He did that all day long. When they were finally done, the guy who'd only took one break looked over at this guy. He said, how in the world do you have more wood than me piled up? And you took all those breaks. You just wasted your time taking break after break. I only took one. He said, easy. Every break that I was taking, I was sharpening my axe. While you were just taking a break that one time. You see, this morning, that's us. We've lost our spiritual edge. We need to take those moments out to God and allow him to begin to sharpen those edges during those meditation times, those peaceful times, those busy times. I want the worship team to begin to sing this morning. And I want you to sing the song from last week, if you can, about dissolving cancer. You don't know it? We're not going to do it then. I thought Ashley was here. She had to leave. That's fine. Just go to the last song that we did. I want us to begin to think about this morning where you lost your spiritual edge. What's gotten so busy that you begin to lose those times with God where you feel effective? Because that's what it's about this morning, is we need to be effective for God. And our goodness that God gives us, which will go with this worship song, is a chance for us to reflect this morning that God is running after you to get you more effective for what's ready to come. And I don't know about you, but every day I wake up, I wonder, what's going to cut me down again. And there's things in our life, when we talked about the church and job, we can't blame other things for our edge being lost. Whose responsibility is it? It's on us. So this morning, whether you're online or you're right here, can you just spend a few moments during this worship time very peacefully to reflect on the goodness of God and the effectiveness? Are you where you want to be this morning? The gifts that God has given you, are you where you need to be this morning? Because I'm telling you right now, as things open up all over this world, God's calling the army to start working again. It's time to start working in the fields. The gifts that have been given to you, they're borrowed. Let's start using them this morning.